Okay, now we're going to move on to the discussion part of our morning. And I would like to welcome onto the stage Kai, otherwise known as Big Brother. You're back on the stage, please. Little Brother, otherwise known as Robert Grace. Or I should say Young Brother. I would like to, and some of these people that you haven't seen on stage yet, you will have seen in some of the pictures and presentations. Next up is Jason Kalugendo. Jason, where are you? Okay. Big hand and drum roll for Jason, please. Jason is based in Tanzania. He's an international communications and capacity development expert. That is a mouthful. I'm sorry about that, but that is a very important title. He has global experience across a broad range of areas, including church leadership, forest management, policy development, knowledge management, and capacity development. My gosh, that's an awful lot. I think, Jason, you can probably sum that down to something more digestible. But anyway, I'm very glad that you're here. Then, next up, we will welcome Janet Martires from the Philippines. IEC, she's a project development specialist working with an NGO called Yakap Kalikasan, which means Embrace the Environment in Filipino. And her particular speciality is getting children involved in the forest. And last but by no means least, we have Marti Boada. Where's Marti? Marti, por favor. Marti Boada is the Professor of Environmental Studies at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And he established not just Spain, but Europe's first school of natural history. Is that right? In Latin America, okay. I'm trying my Spanish out here. I haven't spoken it for many decades. Anyway, we're very happy to welcome him. And then finally, we have Patricia Sphere. Patricia, thank you very much. Please take your seat. Patricia is the rural development expert at Seeds International, a civil company dedicated to providing innovative solutions for improving the socio-economic conditions of individuals. Anyway, I welcome you all. Thank you very much for coming on stage.
Mercedes.
You all look splendid. You're going to get a translation, aren't you? From excellent. Very good. Very good. So let me start off. I'm going to sit down as well, if I may. Let me start off by asking Robert, who's our communications taskmaster here.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes.
Can you hear?
Am
I want to ask you, Robert, how do you think we're going to do when it comes to communications, having seen what you've just seen?
I think that the task of communication is hard, and I saw the survey results, and I think that we're answering our own questions. I think the question to ask is put yourselves in the shoes of the people you're trying to engage and understand what's going to be meaningful for them. Because I assure you that not many people get up in the morning and think about, let's say, forests, as they don't about any other brand. You've got to intersect where it's most meaningful, and I think that's what the challenge is coming off the sessions that we've seen today.
So, okay, so let's put you on the spot as the ad guy.
Yes.
Off the top of your head, and we won't tell your bosses about this, and you're not going to be held accountable, but try and come up with one line off the top of your head that sells forests or the forestry issue to our audience here.
Can I answer it a different way? When I talked about that idea of the enemy, I actually think your enemy is boredom. Because I think that people are so tired of hearing the same thing from so many NGOs, from so many organizations, sustainability, and you kind of, it's just an ongoing record. We have to find a different conversation to have. What that conversation is, give me a few more minutes.
We'll get back to the end. So, Patricia, is boredom the enemy of the issue that we're all trying to solve?
No sé si funciona.
I think, in a way, yes, it is. It would be interesting as he said, to think out of the box and try to find a positive.
So your mic, I think, is. We have another mic issue. Can
now?
you we hear you, Patricia. Yeah. Excellent. So you're saying, just repeat what you just said to me.
I think that I don't fully agree with him, but we need to think out of the box when you talk about forests and try to find something that is different from what the people want to hear, but at the same time to be realistic in what we want the people to know about the forest.
Right. Okay. Jason, again, weigh in on this one. Is boredom the biggest problem here? Is it apathy? Is it complacency? How do you get people, who should be interested in this, engaged in it when they're not? Is Jason being heard? No? We need to fix Jason's mic as well.
I think the most important issue
Okay.
in addressing the forest issue is to understand who...
No, so hang on, Jason. We still can't hear you.
No,
Can we just tap your mic for a minute? Sorry, Jason. 1, 2, 3. Can we hear Jason? You're not going to get anywhere with communications if the mics don't work. Let's face it. Okay. Jason.
all right.
Can we hear Jason?
Can you hear me?
No.
No?
Can we hear?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying that the most aspect in communicating and in making the first issue more addressed is to understand who is the custodian. It's not the policymakers, it's not the NGO, it's not the local authorities, it's the people who are living near the forest. This they need and understand closer about the forest than anybody else. And I think if we engage effectively these people who are living nearby the forest so that they become not the beneficiaries or not the stakeholders, they become the owners of the forestry so that you give them the capacity they need to engage the rest of the stakeholders.
You agree with that, Patricia?
Actually, what's important that the people speak about their forest, because they are the only ones which are connected to the forest directly. So it's important that they speak to the forest and out of the forest and for the forest.
But if the forest doesn't actually belong to them, I mean, if it belongs to a big company, let's say, or it's belongs to the state, and people very much see themselves as being on the outside of the forest, that relationship cannot be established very easily, can it?
It can be.
It
Why
can be.
not? Because the only beneficiaries that come out of the forest is for these people, the community which are living next to the forest. Even if it is a private one, they are benefiting from the landscape, from the view. Every time, every day, they have to open the window. They are seeing this spot outside, so they are connected.
Okay, Janet, you are dealing with children. Is it easier to get children excited about the forest than adults?
1, 2, 3. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
A miracle. Yeah, okay.
Amen. Children are one of the best individuals who can receive information and make use of information. They are the easiest sectors whom we can transfer information, and they ultimately make use of this. I quite agree to the idea that we choose and get information about forests from and to the forest dwellers. But students who also may not actually direct users of forest resources can be very good sources of information. In fact, in our program, which is incidentally funded by the Food and Agriculture Organization, we look at children from the rural areas, from the urban areas, from the cities, to also participate and talk about forests. We bring them into the forest so that they can get a real feel of what a forest is. And so afterwards, after a series of sessions with them, they become the voice of the forest as well.
So the important thing is here is to actually bring the audience into the forest.
Into
unless
the
you do
forest.
that, unless you have physical contact with the forest, and you feel what it looks like and smells like and feels like,
Exactly.
you can't start.
Exactly. We treat the forest as the biggest science laboratory for students. And direct experience in the forest really makes them appreciative of what it is to be a voice of the forest as well.
But it must be quite tough to get a sufficient number of kids into a forest. How do you do that? I mean,
It's like a camping activity when you have a select number of students or not necessarily just students, but also even the children of charcoal makers, the forest users. We select about 40 to 50 children per batch, and then we bring them for about 3 days in the forest. We have a very good program for them, and the program includes games, cooking sessions, and even immersion with the communities, because it is when they actually get a feel of how it is to be a forest community member. We use games because they really are more attractive to children. And so when they come down and after a series of other sessions, they talk about forest with sincerity.
Okay, Kai, let me turn to you. So kids are a more receptive audience, we just heard from Janet. Okay, let's get back to our lot, the adults. And you are an expert in communications, which is why you also earned the title of Big Brother. So what is in your vast experience of this field, where do you honestly think we are going wrong when it comes to fashioning the message that will create that important link between the audience and the forest?
Well, we're still, first of all, I'm happy to say that we've come a long way from the time when people sought employment in forestry to be alone in the woods, and our mindset has changed, so we're more willing to cooperate and listen to people, but we're quite defensive, and we have a ton of good, innovative, close to people's everyday lives examples of communicating, and we're still a bit not quite there. We used to be so hung up on our statistics and how wonderful, and we can't break that lump of wonder into something comprehensible for the people, and we're getting better at it.
Isn't communication also about telling a story? You've got to tell them
sure.
Forget about the numbers for a minute. You've got to tell a story. So what's the story that you want to tell?
Well, in short, it is as banal as it may sound. It's save the planet by using forests, and we do the same with the kids, not with such a high note, but what we tell the kids from early on, and the teachers that mold these little saplings and the society at large via the decision makers on what the interactive nature of the forest sector and the others are. That's in a country like ours, we have 3/4 of forest, and everyone knows someone who owns it. And in our case, it's a bit specific. Mm-hmm. But with us, it is on to making ourselves relevant to the next sectors and not just speaking to ourselves.
Okay, let me turn to you, Martti. You've been engaged in this as an academic for a very long time, and you've just heard what Kai had to say about the story. Are we getting something wrong here? Or is the story that we're trying to save the planet not in itself important and compelling enough that people should be listening? Is your microphone on? Just say a few words, Martti. Dime algunas palabras porque el micrófono tal vez no funciona.
No, pero tengo Mercedes que me traduce.
Okay.
Sí, yo voy a hacer la traducción.
Okay, so we're going to hear Martti in a low voice, and we're going to, what's your name, sorry?
Mercedes.
Mercedes you're going to hear her voice more than the professor's voice. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mercedes. Muchas gracias.
De nada.
Hace 20 años
20 years ago,
tuve la gran fortuna
I was very fortunate.
en Pretoria.
In Pretoria, I received
de manos de Nelson Mandela
from Mr. Nelson Mandela
el Premio Mundial de Naciones Unidas
the World Prize from the United
para
Nations
el medio ambiente,
for the medio ambiente,
cuyos destinatarios eran los silent partners, la gente no vistosa, los obreros del medio ambiente.
and the destinataries of that prize were the people that they are never seen.
Nelson Mandela dijo,
Nelson Mandela said,
no olvidéis nunca
never you forget
que la gran causa de lucha
that the great cause for
del
fighting
futuro de la humanidad
and the future of the humanity
es la lucha por el medio ambiente.
is the lucha for the medio
environment.
ambiente, the environment.
Como Santo Tomás, perdonad la nota bíblica,
Like Santo Tomás from Spain,
me caí del caballo
he fell from the horse,
y abandoné la visión
and I forgot about the vision,
romántica
the romantic vision
de la botánica, de las aves,
about botany and about zoology,
y entendí el sentido social y
and I
revolucionario
understood the social and revolutionary,
de la formación y la comunicación ambiental.
the formation and the communication of the,
Tiene un sentido de cambio necesario.
there is a necessary change.
Por primera vez la humanidad
For the first time, humanity
no puede estar tocando el violín
cannot be playing the fiddle
mientras se nos están quemando los bosques.
while our forests are burning.
Es como metáfora.
It's a metaphor.
Y en este momento tenemos
And in this moment, we have
un problema de comunicación
a very big problem with communication.
muy notorio.
It's a big, big problem.
No podemos comunicar,
We cannot
en
communicate,
mi modesta opinión,
in my modest opinion,
alarmando y asustando a nuestros niños.
frightening and our children.
No los podemos asustar.
We cannot frighten them.
Principio de Wall-Herlich. Efecto fogonazo. Un niño o una niña asustada
A frightened child, whether boy or girl,
desconecta.
will be disconnecting from the problem.
No podemos asustar, no somos nadie para asustar a nuestros niños.
We cannot frighten our children. We don't have the right to frighten
Debemos
them.
capacitar.
We must capacitate them.
Principio de Margalef, gran ecólogo.
The principle from Margalef, he was once a great ecologist.
La información, si es buena,
The information, if it is good,
siempre multiplica.
it will always multiply.
Okay, that's great. So let me just...
Okay.
Si es mala,
okay,
es
okay.
Si es mala, divide.
If the wrong information, if it's bad information, it will divide.
Okay, that's very interesting. So I'm going to ask you a very quick question with a brief answer. Do you then think that the message that we are, unless we save the forests, the planet will cease to function is the wrong message? Should we abandon that message?
¿Usted cree que si decimos que tenemos que salvar el mundo, porque si no a los bosques, porque si no salvamos los bosques el mundo se va a morir? ¿Cree usted que es la información errónea?
Horrorosa.
Horrible.
Paul Herlich, número 1 mundial,
Paul Harley, number 1 in the world.
habla del efecto fogonazo
He speaks about the fighting spirit
y nosotros,
And-
los humanos,
in us, the humans,
frente a un fogonazo,
in front of something.
desconectamos etológicamente con T, ¿eh?
Yeah.
Absoluta.
We disconnect etologically,
Right.
Y miramos hacia otro lado.
and we look towards the other
Okay,
side.
all right, that's really interesting. So, Robert, do you, as an ad man, does that make sense? A negative message is going to put people off, they're going to stop
Divide.
listening.
Yeah, I think scaremongering has a place, but I don't think it's the central galvanizing thought. Going back to your question earlier, I think what trees represent is the idea of hope. It is our last hope in many ways, but actually it's a really simple thing for anybody to do. You can plant a tree. We can do it in a sustainable way. We can consume responsibly. And this idea of growing hope, and that's what everybody can do, is a much more rallying positive cry than, well, if we don't, the
Okay.
planet might come to an end.
Patricia, do you want to weigh in on that?
I come from a part of the world where communication seems to be quite difficult. Not these days, but for such a long time. And forests have always been associated, when we talk about communication in forest issues, with a problem, with an urgency, with an emergency, with a fire, with a broken, fell down trees. Everything that is bad was only communicated about forest. And I think that's what we need to change, this perception of the negative issues of the forest, extrapolate to the positive things that the forest would offer. That's what I agree with him on the hope, on the message that we really want to convey to the people.
It's interesting, the country I come from, Germany, the forest has always been something sort of mystical, mysterious, to be cherished. There's a lot of German romanticism tied up with the forest. And, sorry?
The forest, not a museum,
Yes,
but
exactly.
a living hub.
That's right. So, Jason, what do you think? I mean, you just heard Patricia there. we've got to be more positive in our message. We've got to try and get people to fall in love with the forest again, not to fear its departure, its demise.
And actually, that's the problem of communicating, because when we communicate with the people, we just use hard approach. You tell them don'ts and do's. And that is not working. You start with a soft approach of what the people they know, what they love, changes that they see, and what they want to hear. And actually, if you want to succeed more, we don't sell the ideas from externally. We engage people for actions. So for them, they create the actions, they create the agenda, and you communicate from behind, and you let their voice to be heard.
But so here's my next question. You know, a lot of this conference is about how we can integrate the forest into agriculture, into sustainable agriculture, that agriculture and the forest should not be at war with each other, they could work together. I've not come across a farmer yet who is in love with his potato fields or turnip fields, right? So aren't we, by making the forest more sustainable as a productive part of our food landscape, aren't we actually making it even more difficult to love the forest than is already the case? Janet, what do you think?
Well, I think the concept of agroforestry is already flourishing, and starting from the children, the families who also till their lands for food and for protection and conservation, this has to be put in balance. The children in our case, do not only look at the forest as trees. They also have to be able to appreciate it as a source of food, wood, medicine, recreation, and education.
I mean, this is something that came up yesterday in the plenary session. It is very easy to love a tree. It is quite difficult to love a forest. You know, trees are good, forests are bad in some estimation. So is that the problem? There are just too many trees in the forest, and therefore it's quite difficult to establish a relationship with one. Kai?
Well, from a European perspective, there are 16 million private forest owners in Europe, and they too they're small scale, and they do have an emotional relationship with the forest, which they've inherited, are yet to give to their next generation, and they do know that it has an economic value, and they do have an emotional relationship with it, and there's hardly any pillaging at that point when you do have you feel a sense of ownership and you sense of pride in that, and it's not just the economic relationship, but it's a much deeper and intangible way of looking at it as well. So and of course the culture is a bit different that the processing industries have needed to reinvent themselves as well, and they are doing a very good job and coming up with a new way of looking at things, and not just producing your basic things, but solutions for everyday life, and that merging is helping.
Okay, now I want to thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to some questions in a minute from the audience, but first of all, I'd like to give you the results of the survey that we did earlier. The problem is that, Peter, I need your help, because the iPad has now gone back to its front page, and I have no idea where to find the results. So, Peter, if you can rush up here as quickly as possible. I'm incredibly good at iPads normally, but this one, here I am. So just find the page for me. I know. Oh, there it is. Okay. Then I can, so I've done the scrolling thing. Okay, I'm really, really bad at this stuff, as Maria will tell you. Okay, so quickly, to appraise what went on. The first question that we all voted on, the political will exists within your organization for good communications to succeed. Okay, totally agree, 16 votes, so 27%. Agree, so somewhat agree, 44%. Disagree, 19%. Indifferent, 10%. So basically, the slim majority said yes, there was a political will, but it wasn't exactly worthy of a drum roll, okay? Next question. The organization has the capacity to communicate well. Okay, here obviously we're dealing with a bunch of communicators, so they're going to be congratulating themselves. I'm not going to name names. Anyway, so the majority of you thought, yes, we're doing a great job. 40% said they agreed with that statement. 90% were in total agreement. And then 14% said they were indifferent. 28% actually disagreed. So there was, let's say a third of you thought, more can be done. A lot more can be done. Third question, your communications are well resourced. 28% agreed, 9% totally agreed, and actually the majority disagreed in various forms. So you need to spend more money on communications. You need to raise funds, as Patricia just told me. You need to raise funds. So the will is there, the funding is not there, but when you do get the funding and you have the will, you're all doing a marvelous job. Okay? So you thought. Communications are strategic and planned. Disagree. Actually, 17% disagreed, 12% sort of were indifferent, 22% agreed. So again, I would say the audience was split down the middle on this one. More planning needed. You start with clear aims and objectives. A lot of you agreed with this one, and quite a few of you totally agreed. So what seems to be happening is that you have a very clear idea of what you want to do, and then, as often happens, even in my industry, it sort of gets dissipated down the line. You regularly gather and use good evidence to base your communications on. 47% of you agreed, and 70% of you totally agreed, and the rest of you didn't really. So I think we're okay, in good shape on that one. Number 7, you know your stakeholders well and understand their standpoints and needs. Again, the majority of you agreed with that, 41%, 9% totally agreed. But perhaps you could get to know them a little bit better. Number 8, your organization willingly forms partnerships with other organizations and you pool your resources. The vast majority of you said, yes, that is the case. So you work, the interactivity between organizations seems to be getting better according to you. And number 9, your communications are imaginative and creative. 33% of you said yes. 14% yes, yep, absolutely, worthy of a drum roll, and then 26% disagreed with that. Your communications are imaginative and creative. Patricia, are they imaginative and creative enough?
They are. You always have to think out of the box and target your message to the audience. And have a clear purpose of what you want to achieve.
That's true. That is so true for everything. Now, I think, Peter, we've got some questions online coming in as well. Can we have one or two questions from online? Are they coming up? This is the online.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Voice from heaven.
Do you want to read them out, Peter?
Yes, sir. We have a question from Cynthia Pereira, who's an environmental scientist in Barcelona via Twitter. Can we make forests go viral? Go viral, Facebook, video, on Twitter. And how do we do this? Is there a way to getting more celebrities in?
Okay, so this is a question from Barcelona, so we have the answer from Barcelona. So the question is, can we make forests go viral? Can we create literally a firestorm of viral communication on the internet through forests, and do we need to get celebrities involved? What do you think?
Sí, en todo el mundo, ¿no?
This all over the world.
Cintia es una doctoranda mía de mi universidad.
She's right. Oh, she's a friend of yours. All right, okay. All right.
Yo creo que hay que distinguir comunicar con capacitar.
I think we must distinguish between communication and to capacitate.
Más información no es sinónimo de más conocimiento.
More information, it doesn't mean that we have more knowledge.
Con las redes sociales,
with the social media,
un fenómeno de saturación de información,
we are having a saturation of information.
Que llega a producir el infarto informativo.
And we have, a cardiac arrest of information.
Una gota de más informativa es inundante, es ahogante.
One more drop of information and can drown you.
Y una última consideración, en estos momentos,
in this moment,
en la comunicación respecto al bosque,
in the communication with respect to our forests,
sobre todo sobre el bosque hay una binaridad preocupante.
There is a duality that is very worrying.
Los intocabilistas, que invocan el wilderness como ideal, la no tocabilidad del bosque, no tocarlo,
The ones that they say do not touch the boast,
y los productivistas que solo ven metros cúbicos.
and the ones that they want production and they only say a square meterage or cubic meterage.
Y cuando hay binaridad humana,
And when they are duality,
se produce el enroque,
we can have
que es el menos inteligente
the breakage, which
de
is
los
less,
procesos de comunicación.
that is the less intelligent of the process of communication.
Y solo se puede superar
And we can only separate it
formulando
if we formulate
una sustentabilidad
a sustainability
sincera,
Okay.
sincere,
no dejando de lado que hay 130 definiciones de sustentabilidad. Por
Okay.
tanto, la comunicación
not
es una
forgetting
cosa-
that there are 130 different models of sustainability.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Now, we're going to wrap up this discussion very, very soon because we're going to have a final word from Eduardo. But just one little, I'm going to get back to you, Robert, here, because I said I would at the end. So you've had time to think. How do you make us fall in love with our forests as an ad man?
As I said, I think the idea of hope is an interesting one because it can be a negative statement because it is our last hope. But I think it's also an incredibly empowering one when you think about your kids and the future that you want them to have. This idea that forests can represent hope and almost, a last hope, but in a positive sense, that actually we can all do something. We aren't
Right.
asking everybody to go and protest in front of the United Nations with Greenpeace. We're saying, actually, just go out there and do something. Plant a tree, educate, talk about it. So I think that the
Okay.
idea or the thought around hope is an interesting one.
So hope, maybe we should all adopt a forest somewhere and plant trees. Anyway, I would like you to give a huge hand to our panel. Drums, where are those drums? Come on, guys. All right.